I put out the call, as I often do when we do videos together, for 60th anniversary theories on both Twitter and YouTube. And obviously, there's been a lot of responses. Basically, I put this out following the trailer that we had. It was really cool to get something on Christmas as well. Russell just knows what we want. He knows
the people.
He knows us all too well. But yeah, I guess I just want to go through a couple of theories on here. But before we get into it, if you could do me a teeny little favor and click that subscribe button, that'd be very much appreciated. We are trying to get to 20,000 subscribers as quickly as possible, so any support would be greatly appreciated on that front. Links to all my socials as well as Geek Rambles will be in the description below, and enjoy the video. This is from Cow Josh Bebop. Nice name, I like that. Beat the Meat will either be a flashback or the Doctor will be experiencing a vivid recreation of that event, which will tie into the idea that some entity is manipulating them, possibly the Celestial Toymaker or the gods of Ragnarok. Okay. I kind of actually like the idea that Beep the Meep isn't actually Beep the Meep, but is kind of a recreation of that encounter, perhaps, as almost like a trial type thing for the Doctor that like the Toymakers conjured up. That could definitely be the way they go about it. I don't know whether the gods of Ragnarok will factor in there for greatest show in the galaxy, right? I think.
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah, I think I'm right, aren't I? Yeah. I definitely think Neil Patrick Harris is the Toymaker. I'm locking that in right now. It's 100%.
Yeah.
In my head, it's basically
all confirmed. Yeah.
In my head, it is basically confirmed. But yeah, I like the idea of the Toymaker making that like a recreation or like a sort of simulation type thing, I guess. That's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And we all know that the Celestial Toymaker just rigs the games to be in his favour, which is fine by me. That's one of the things I actually really like. So that would make sense to me. But part of me doesn't want it to be a recreation, because I do actually quite like, when I've listened to audios with Beat the Meep as well, what a cute little geezer, he looks very sweet. And then, well, you know what happens I don't want to spoil it for anyone if they don't know what Beat the Meep is actually.
Let's just say he's not as cute and cuddly as he might appear.
No, I wouldn't want to get that close to him, put it that way. So I hope it isn't a recreation, but I think the one thing that I love about RTD is the world building and the way he puts things together. So it would be lovely to have other people introduced to Beat the Meep. Like my parents would have no idea who that guy is, who they are.
That's the thing. It's cool for the fans, but it's also obscure enough that you can kind of like build on it and make its own thing, I guess, which is like a nice balance. The same with the Toymaker, really. Like, we've only seen the Toymaker once in the entire history of the show, but he's like notable enough to make sense for an anniversary, particularly an anniversary of this type, where the Doctor's got an old face for a mysterious reason, which I'm almost certain the Toymaker has some hand in, and I'm sure people will get into the reasonings for that in due course. But like, I think it's just, I like the idea of bringing back more obscure classic films, because I do feel like, again, not to keep harping on like the Chibnall stuff, but like, towards the end of that, it was very like Daleks, Cybermen, Master, you got the Sontarans, and I love those guys, but it's nice to see some ones that are a bit more out there and a bit more like, oh, that's a cool choice.
Yeah, the same thing. It does get tired. I mean, how many times do the Daleks want to have an incursion of Earth, So I just think
and I feel like I'm a bit sick of like the Master as well. I'm like, I like Sacha Dhawan, but I'm like, can we give the character a break for a bit? Doctor Who is Strange said, I think the rocket that is in the trailer is the one that Beat the Meat uses for controlling people, like in the comics, but he may be working with the Toymaker, or maybe Russell's version Toymaker made Beat the Meat evil. That's interesting. So Toymaker in this continuity, I guess, would be the creator of Beep the Meep, I guess, or at least the reason Beep the Meep is against the Doctor or evil or something of that effect. I like the idea that the rocket is what they use to control people. It could also explain why, okay, this is a wild shout, but you know how in the opening of the trailer we see the Wrath Warriors go up against a unit, and we also see the unit soldiers are next to that rocket in the trailer. What if it's Beep the Meep who's getting the unit soldiers to go against the Wrath Warriors? Maybe. That's just me adding a little bit to that idea. He's the one encouraging them.
It's it looks like it is all about to kick off in terms of, everyone having a bit of a scrap. Can definitely see that happening. When I saw it, because the only thing is when he was talking to, I don't want to say Rose, it just doesn't feel right to call another character Rose, but it's when he's talking to, Yasmin, is it Yasmin? Sorry.
Yasmin Finney,
It's gone blank, talking and saying, what are they? Saying monsters, it's almost a bit, and I understand that's the cute part of Beat the Meat that everyone's seen, so that's fine. But I want to see, because if we're going to get Donna back with her daughter, which is fine by me, I want to see one of them sort of be turned, if you know what I mean. Okay. I want to see one of those be controlled. I wanted it to happen with Yaz, but I didn't get that. So hopefully I can have it with someone else.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I see. So the villains,
see what I mean? I'm not very good at explaining things.
No, I get you. Like one of the villains taking control over them. That would be interesting. This next one is one that I can't see happening, but it's an interesting idea nonetheless. From Wolfgang Bailey, Tennant isn't actually playing the Doctor. He's playing a version of the Master from a remnant that got trapped in Jodie's consciousness. So this is in reference to what happened in Power of the Doctor. I can't see the story tying in that heavily, if I'm honest. I could maybe see a reference to like the Guardians of the Edge or something. Possibly. I mean, maybe even that might be a stretch, but I just don't know whether I see like them like making David Tennant's return the Master. I think if you've already got the Toymaker there, kind of just like maybe overcrowds it villain-wise. And also we don't know how much Ncuti Gatwa's in it yet. It might be a bit much to ask an audience to follow an evil Doctor the whole time. Yeah, I don't know whether I see that, although it is an interesting idea.
I actually saw that tweet and I thought myself, that is such a good idea.
Yeah.
I do love the idea, but I'm with you. I don't see it happening.
Tennant and NPH are playing the same character or will body swap or something. Those waistcoats are way too similar and ain't no coincidence or coinky-dink, as they say. In the tweet. I don't think they'll body swap. However, I could see the Toymaker being the influence for Tennant's costume. Like, because we do see in the trailer, the Toymaker has the weird sort of tartan waistcoat as well. So here's my theory with that would be the Toymaker's gone, oh, I quite like that pattern. I'll whack that on the Doctor for a bit. Because I think part of this, the whole regeneration thing, is the Toymaker playing a game with the Doctor. I think that's what it is. I've seen people say, and this is not a theory that I've seen in this list yet, but it's one that I've seen floating about, this idea that what Neil Patrick Harris represents is kind of that fan that wants everything to stay how he remembers it or how he wants it. So I think the idea of the Neil Patrick Harris Toymaker dressing up the Doctor in a certain way, having him be David Tennant, having him meet Donna again, it could kind of have some level of like meta commentary of, hey, David Tennant was great, but we're like, but only you can have like Ncuti trying to break through and be like, but we're moving on now as well, kind of deal. I think that might be the way they go about it. Obviously, they'll try to be like subtle with it, but it's like it'll kind of be like it's great to see David back, but look, Ncuti's also waiting in the wings. You want to give him a go, you know? You want to see him.
I know, and he's buzzing in the wings as well.
Yeah, he is.
Chomping at the bit. That is a good idea. Again, these are all good ideas. It's more just, do I think that the Toymaker had a part to play in that regeneration? Absolutely. And I hope that the Toymaker is aware. I know we're going to get into this, so I'll screw off it very, very briefly. It has a bit of an influence as to how Donna is involved in this.
Yes.
But I will get into that later, I promise.
Oh, that's
so my thing with that in particular is I don't think they'll body swap. I don't kind of want them to body swap. We had that in the episode before.
Yeah.
So I don't want that. I also don't think that they're playing the same character, but it makes a lot of sense. A bit like the Dream Lord, actually.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so that does make sense, but again, it's too recent.
Yeah.
And RTD is very good at new stuff, and hopefully he'll give us something that we'll never expect. And I think he will.
Yeah.
First episode with him, and having a great director underneath that as well will make it excellent. So whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be good. I just don't see a body swap or the same character being played. I just feel like it's too soon.
No, I don't see that. The only, like I said, the only way I can see the waistcoats correlating is that like the Toymaker made him wear that for fun, to be like, And
I think it's a cool costume. I quite like it. I mean, if it's not
I think it's like. I think it's better than his original look, personally. I think...
that's a hot take. How's that going to go down?
I think the new 14 look is genuinely one of the best looks of a Doctor in general. I really like it. It just feels a bit more Doctor-y, you know? A bit more quirky, but also maintains the original silhouette as well. Like, it's got a nice balance there. I really like it. I'm going to say one of my theories, because I know you mentioned the whole Donna, how she factors in. I'm going to throw a curveball in. This is my own idea now. I think the Toymaker, and I could be wrong, this is just my theory, I think the Toymaker specifically chose the Doctor regenerating into that face so that it would trigger Donna's memory relapse thing. And I think, I don't know what reason there would be. Maybe he's going to try to harness the power that we've seen inside Donna Noble. But realistically, if Donna saw the TARDIS, sure, it's possible that she could sort of see, sort of remember stuff. But it's highly more likely for her to remember and perhaps have issues if it's David Tennant's face in particular. And maybe they'll have a thing of like, if you stay in my realm, Doctor, Donna will survive and you can stay with her forever. But if you stop me, then she'll die. So I think that could be the way they do it. Could be wrong. Because we see in filming like them two together. So it's obvious that there's some interference with the whole memory thing there. And then obviously as well, but they're still plucking on that thread, because in the trailer, obviously you've got Sylvia being terrified at the idea of Donna seeing it. I still love that. I love that scene. I think that scene's great. I do. It's like that sort of RTD comedy that I love. Like, because from Sylvia's perspective, she's terrified, but from our perspective, it's very funny. It's brilliant. It's great balance. But yeah, I could see it maybe being the toy maker being sadistic enough to be like, I'll give him this face in particular, and I'll put him with Donna Noble and see what happens. I think that's the sort of thing where it's like, yeah, that might be quite an interesting reasoning for it. Again, could be wrong there.
What you said isn't what I was going to say, but I think that's a really good idea. And the sort of fear I have about the end of this 60th is that she is not going to be here. Yeah. For a bit of a similar reason to you, it just isn't the same sort of thing.
I see.
But where she is suspended in some sort of limbo where she's able to remember, because I think when they're introduced, it's pretty clear that they're not introduced as Doctor and Donna.
Yeah.
So just from the skinny man comment alone, and like you say, Sylvia being so terrified. So I don't think it's going to be that. I think Wolf's going to have a bit of a part to play in it. Isn't it so lovely that we can still see him?
Oh, that is going to break. When that happens later this year and we see him on screen again, that might.
It's gonna hurt.
That's gonna get me in the feels. Like, I've only ever come close to tears once with Doctor Who, and that is with Wilf and the camp scene in Turn Left. Very different reason, of course. But when the guy they're staying with gets sent away, and he's like, "This is what happened last time." That's the only time I've come close. But just seeing Bernard again, knowing what happened afterwards, might just make me lose it in a way that I don't.
Might tip you over the edge.
It might, because that is.
No, I'm not a crier.
I'm not either.
In general, but this might be the one to do it. You never know.
Yeah, but I'm curious. Actually, you might as well say, what is your theory for her not being around anymore? I'm curious now. You got me. You piqued my curiosity. I want to know.
I'm so glad. I don't think your friends are gonna like this one that much though. But mine is pretty similar, except mine's just a little bit more dark, I guess. But mine is that she is kept in limbo with being able to remember the Doctor, whether it's that incarnation or the other one. It doesn't really matter to me at this point. And being involved in having that team together, because it's so good, isn't it? Bringing you on such a high, and then this has to happen. But my thing is that the celestial toy maker, or whoever he may be, is going to get it to the point. Like I said, the games are always rigged in his favor, so he's going to make a way where someone's going to have to sacrifice themselves. And I hate to say it, but she didn't want to go back to being Donna Noble. She'd rather die last time we saw her. Part of me feels like we're going to get back to that point. I hope it's not right. I'm not saying my theory is right. It's more, in fact, I really hope it doesn't happen, but I think that's what's going to happen.
So you think,
but I really hope it doesn't.
Donna is going to sacrifice herself to break the toy maker's spell thing.
To break his game,
that's interesting. That could work. I guess you could.
But it won't work.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. I think that could be what they do, but I would argue it would make more sense if it was the Doctor instead. So what I mean by that, I guess, is that him choosing to change is what breaks the spell, and him.
So that's how we get to shooting.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, because Tennant was the only one who was like, I don't actually want to stop being this one. I'd rather stick around. So I could also see the toy maker playing on that a bit, like, but you could have everything. You could have Donna Noble back. You could be yourself again. All you've got to do is stay in this little bubble. But then you could have maybe Shooty coming in maybe via force projection, almost be like, no, you've got to move forward. They are a thing. I mean, they are a thing. But you could just have him be like, no, you've got to, or you through
my turn
contact or something. Move along, Spikey. It's my go. You've had your chance.
Let me come through.
But something like that where he has to sacrifice him being this version again. in order to let either Donna live or the spell break or something. That could also work. I think your idea is also good. I just don't know whether I want to see Donna Noble die.
I don't want to see it. She is my ultimate. No one will ever top her for me. Yeah. And we have had this before where we had the Critter doing the whole, was it like the God complex? I can't remember.
Yeah. I was just thinking like the Time Lord Victorious kind of angle of like, you know, how the Doctor was like, oh, you know, he was very like, I don't want to die, or, you know, I don't want to lose people or let people die. I want things to stay almost as I want them. And the Toymaker maybe playing on that and offering that might be a really interesting way of. I think there's just so much potential in the idea of the Toymaker doing this, and I'm just really excited. So much. And the thing is, I trust Russell to capitalize on that potential as well. If there's one man who could do a concept like this and make it really interesting, it is him. Seen some people say Neil Patrick Harris isn't the Toymaker, he's the Master. Nah, I'm just going to say that now. I don't think we're retreading the Master again, or at least I really, really hope that we're not.
No,
I'm a bit over the Master.
Yeah, I've had enough for now. For now, obviously, I want to see the Master or Mistress or whoever it may be back at some point, but in the distant future. But if you're a Master or Mistress lover, that's absolutely fine. I understand that. But for me, it's a hard no.
I enjoy the character. I just think we've seen way too much of them recently. I'm just like, give them a break. You know? Yeah. Actually, a lot of people said Donna. I've seen a couple of people say Donna dies, so you're not the only one who thinks they might go down that route. Which
well, let's not manifest it.
Yeah, no,
let's keep
not.
That.
I think if the 60th was a case of it's just the 10th Doctor and Donna for a few more episodes, that does just sort of feel like, all right, just sort of done 2008 again, that's it. But by doing it like this, where he's a new incarnation, the Toymaker's made stuff happen, the Doctor doesn't really know who he is or what the hell's going on. Cuties like, hey, what's going on?
No one knows what's going on.
No one knows what's going on, but I think making it like a narrative mystery is a way I would much prefer, as opposed to like just popping the 10th Doctor and Donna out from their timeline and placing them into some new random unconnected stories. I think if it was that, I'd be a lot more wary, because there's not much creative potential in that. Whereas, as we've sort of been saying, like there's so many ways you could do the Toymaker thing that would be brutal and that would be really, really interesting to watch. Whereas, as I think I've sort of said, if it was just, oh look, the Doctor's going up against the Cybermen with Donna for an episode, or just basically just more series 4, it would be a bit like, you know, I think as well, having Donna be older and having her have a kid as well, that's a really nice way of making it feel like time has still progressed. We're just sort of seeing these characters as they exist in the present, which I think is nice, because you don't really see that often. So that's quite nice.
She's been living her life, Is she Noble Temple or Temple Noble? I can't remember. Temple Noble, isn't it?
I think it's Temple Noble, I think.
Yeah, and she's won the lottery. I forgot about that. Yeah, she's rich.
I do wonder how they're going to address that. Was it just a small amount, or maybe the Toymaker offsets it? Yeah, I wonder how much money she actually won. I guess we'll find out.
Or she did something very Donna-like and blew it all or something.
Yeah, maybe.
I could see that happening, because she's just that kind of person.
Possibly. The Noble family will adopt Beep the Beep after the adventures of the 60th anniversary. That's quite cute. It won't happen because he's too evil for that, but it would be quite cute to have like an adopted alien in the Noble family. That would be kind of adorable.
I would love that. I would actually love that. Not Beat the Meat either. I mean, I wouldn't have Beat the Meat in my home. For pure fear, if I'm being honest. But it's a very cute one. I like that one. Adopt something. Nice. Adopt something.
That's quite cute.
I just don't know what it would be.
Convinced Matt and Capaldi will have cameos in the specials despite their I don't know what that word is. Repudiation. There we are. I'm very smart. Very smart. It took me a second. I was like, what's that word? But yeah. Okay, I think I have to address this because I don't think the others are in it, to be honest. I don't. And I know that you, obviously, I think remember one time when we talked, I think actually when this idea was announced, you were saying, oh, we could think about Chris or Matt or Peter and all that sort of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I would love it if all of them were back. I would especially Matt. You know how much I love Matt. I love Matt. Dearly, I love Matt.
Oh, Matt.
Yeah. However, I sort of understand where they've gone with it in terms of like, we just had Power of the Doctor. Power of the Doctor is the big event one that's got 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, you know, obviously like a bunch of Doctors and companions. And also, actually, that's another thing that hasn't come up yet. Companion speculation, classic companion, because there's been a bit of that going on. But anyway, we've had all of that in Power of the Doctor. And then in terms of New Who, Chris doesn't seem to want to do it. Peter doesn't seem to really want to do it from what I've seen. So you're only really left with Matt in terms of Doctors. And by that point, you do just... run the risk of sort of doing Day of the Doctor again. You run that risk, or at least even if you do a different story with it, it's like, but it is just sort of, to a general public, it's kind of like, but that is just kind of what you did last time. So it's a difficult situation. I don't envy the position Russell's in, because I don't think bringing back Doctors is quite as easy as just, I think some people make out, you know? Like, it's not just, they can snap their fingers and they're all on set and they can all rock up and do things, you know? Because I think Moffat said when they were planning the 50th, the only one under contract was Jenna Coleman.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew that he had to rewrite it.
Yeah, only in the 11th hour could he get 11 and 10, and then Chris turned it down, and then they had to make John Hurt and all this sort of stuff. So it's not quite as easy as I think a lot of people think that it is, you know? And I think he is in a bit of a tight spot. It would be, yeah. I do also kind of think, like, and this might be a bit of a hot take, I suppose, but I do kind of agree with what Peter Capaldi said, in that if you do multi-Doctors too often, you run the risk of devaluing their special nature a bit. In terms of like having them all meet and stuff. And like, while 60 is an anniversary, it's not like a 50 or a 75. It's not like a big landmark one. 60 years, it's still 10 years more. So still mark that, but it's not like 50 was a big deal. You know what I mean? 50 was like, that's half a century. That's a long time.
Long time.
Whereas like 60 isn't as special in most cases. Like, you know, like most things, it's like, you know, 25th, 50th, 75th, 100. You know, those are like the big ones. So 60 is kind of like in that middle point. So I kind of get why maybe multi-Doctor wouldn't be the approach taken, if you get what I'm trying to say. That's my long-winded explanation. That. Yeah, that was very long, but yeah.
That's okay. No, I think it's good to do that. But as much as I just adore Matt so much and would love to see, he is my Doctor, so I absolutely adore him. Too. I don't want to see him.
Okay.
I don't want to see him there. I think with it being the 60th, it's a celebration of 60 years. So you either bring back all of them or you bring back none.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's very hard to critique the 50th because there was so little that was wrong with it, apart from the fact that it was about New Who.
Yeah.
It didn't bring back any of these classic Doctors.
Yeah.
It's a great story, but I wasn't a fan of that at all.
Yeah.
It was because that was, like I say, it was about New Who. It had nothing to do with anything classic or with anything Doctor Who, you know, extravaganza, if you like.
Yeah, so, I get you.
Yeah, so if they're gonna bring back any of them, I want to see. I'd rather see a classic than Matt.
Okay.
But it breaks my heart to say it because I just love him so much.
For me, it's like I get why. But I almost feel like Power of the Doctor filled the classic Doctor coming back hole in my heart a bit. Obviously, I know it wasn't major roles, but I almost feel like I get why they wouldn't choose to do that again, in the sense of like, you don't want it to just feel like either a repeat of the centenary, or if they brought Matt back, a repeat of Day. It's a weird little in-between limbo that this sort of special kind of has to operate in, where fans expect it to celebrate the show and the past, but it's come at a weird time where a new era is starting around it as well. I think that's also an interesting...
It's odd.
It's a very weird... Time. So I don't envy them in that sense. It's an awkward point for an anniversary to fall, really. I think for me as well, and I love Matt Smith again, I don't see a scenario, even when we've gone over all these theories, I don't see a place where he really fits into the narrative as it currently exists, because I wouldn't want him to just appear for the sake of it. He's just there just to say, oh, hello, I'm here, I'm doing doctory things, and bye, and just
and then just he's off.
Yeah, it's like, you know, sort of like what Captain Jack, you know, when Captain Jack came back in series 12, when he came back, he kind of just was like, hey, I'm here, and beware the lone Cyberman, and then he just was gone. And I would hate for Matt's return to be used in that way. If you're going to bring him back, same goes for Peter or any others you want to get back, give him something to do. And I think if you want to tell a story specifically where it's like the toy maker using an old face to enact some sort of plan, I would rather just focus on the characters you need for that story rather than just crowbarring in other ones for the sake of doing it, you know? Like, I think that's where I'm at with it.
I don't think it will happen, and I don't want it. That's like, I hate saying it because I love him so much. But I don't think it happened. I don't want it to happen. I think what we've been used to, and this actually isn't a criticism, it's just an observation of the previous era, is that it seemed like we were watching someone throw as much as they could at the wall and seeing what stuck. And that's just not his way. That's not RTD's way of doing things. So I don't think that'll happen. I don't think he'll do it for the sake of doing it. I would love Capaldi to come back. Of course I would.
I just don't know whether he wants to do it, really. I think everything he said kind of just seems like he's happy with what he did, and he's kind of over it a bit, kind of like, I've moved on sort of thing, which, you know, is unfortunate, but stranger
things have happened. They didn't get Tom for the 25th, did they? So they got him for the 50th, so who knows?
That's true.
But I don't want to see any of them, because I think it's going to have to be when you've got something as complex as Donna coming back, and that's going to have a lot of explaining. I feel like to ease us back into something like that is going to take a hell of a lot. So I don't think
you need the focus on those characters and that dynamic. I agree, and it's the sort of thing as well. I think Power of the Doctor is a great comparison point, because while I love a lot of the scenes in that story, particularly when 7 and 8 reunite, particularly one of my favorites, and obviously 5 and Tegan as well, part of me did feel like it almost didn't know where to focus itself sometimes. And I almost sort of felt, given that was Jodie's last one, it didn't really feel like it sometimes. It sort of just felt
I barely noticed Jodie.
Yeah, and it was awful. It was sort of like an anniversary that she was also in. Do you know what I mean? She was also there, and she also it would sort of be the equivalent if Matt regenerated at the end of Day of the Doctor. It's that's the way I can kind of describe it. It's I would rather the focus be on specific things where we can actually get this fleshed out. And actually, that's another point. That's why I'm really glad it's 3 episodes as opposed to one anniversary episode. I think that gives them more time to flesh out this story, and rather than just cramming it all into one episode and trying to get all your ideas in. But whilst I think the anniversary is important for fans, I also think this one in particular, probably more than any other, is important for the casuals too. If you go on the 60th trailer, all the comments are, I haven't watched Doctor Who in years. I love David. I can't wait to see what shoot he's going to do with it. I'm shooting in. And that's lovely. And I just think that wouldn't be as effective if Peter turned up. Even Jodie or Chris or Paul. Tennant is, and I think I've said this before, even though Matt is my favourite, Tennant is the Tom Baker equivalent. He's the one that
he's a fangirl favourite, isn't he?
He's the one that every casual knows. It's him and Tom are the big two. Tom's the big classic one. I would say David is the big face of new Doctor Who, I would argue.
I would agree with that.
In the same way that Tom is for classic Who. He's just he's just, when people think of Doctor Who, he's one of the main faces I think that comes up. I think it's just important as well to sort of measure expectations when it comes to cameos and stuff as well, because I see a lot of people be like, what if this person's in it and this person's in it? It's I get why, and I'm pro to that as well, but it's also you're never going to get everyone. However, there has been some interesting speculation kind of vetoing that, and sort of moving on to a couple of bits about the 60th. There's been an interesting bit of speculation about Mel and also Susan. Those are the two I've sort of, because Susan is actually, Russell commented on very recently. I don't know whether you saw this, but there was a post of the departure of Susan, and Russell was like, oh, wonder what happened to her.
Such a bugger, isn't it?
Yeah. If there was a showrunner who I would trust to bring back Susan and, do that story justice and make people care about that story and give that conclusion, it probably would be Russell. Because I just think about how he brought back Sarah and everyone instantly got it. Even he did, because I didn't know who Sarah was as a kid. Obviously I watched, in fact, Sarah Jane Adventures was probably, I watched loads, but I hadn't really watched Classic Who at that point. But you got who she was. She was someone who used to travel with the Doctor, who's now doing her own thing. You got it without needing encyclopedic knowledge. Whereas I always feel like that's another difference with Power, where it's they don't really tell you who Ace and Tegan are. They just sort of expect you to know. I think that's one of the differences. And it's if there's one guy I trust to do Susan well and give that a conclusion, probably would be Russell. And I do love the idea of Susan coming back, either in the 60th in some form, or maybe in series 14 do the Sarah Jane thing, or a future season with Shooty, perhaps even beyond that. I just think that would be nice. Maybe even the Toy Maker could be oh, you want to see your granddaughter again? I can make that happen. It's just
I keep forgetting he can do things like that. Yeah,
he can. That's the thing. That's why the Toy Maker is such a great idea to return, because he can just be his whoever, and for a 60th that makes sense. He could just do whatever. Oh, now the world's upside down for a bit. Obviously, I'm not saying they're going to do that, but he has the ability because he is that cosmic and massive, and I think he's the perfect like threat for like an anniversary, a bit more of a grand, I can do it whatever I want, sort of manipulate the world type villain, you know?
I'm a bit more leaning towards this now because I thought that initially I was thinking, no, it's not Susan's time yet. But now
I was convinced.
It always happens when I talk to you. I end up my thoughts just go crazy. I was thinking, a lot of this could make sense, a lot of this could work.
Yeah.
But why would he comment on that if it wasn't going to come to anything? I hate it when he does that.
I definitely think
sometimes.
I think he might have a plan for Susan. I don't know.
He's a very smart guy.
He is a very smart guy. I like I said, if there's one guy I trust with it, it's Russell. Here's the thing. I love a lot of what Moffat did as well. But there's only one, I would argue, in New Who, there's one guy who was more consistent than any other in terms of like overall quality and storylines and all this sort of stuff. And in terms of like the show's overall popularity and just general running the show in terms of like consistency and all that sort of stuff. And that is Russell. You know, even if you're not a huge fan of his era, you can't deny there were some quality stories that came out of it. Like, and from a writing standpoint, you can't really, obviously there's issues there, but like,
there are things in there that weren't.
Character-wise, at least his character journeys are quite, is impeccable. Donna's journey, the only reason we're getting Donna back now is because of how impactful her and her journey was and her family were the first time, and it's like, if he could do that for someone like Susan, I'd be more than happy to see it.
I would. You're quite right, because I don't actually like families that much. I don't really. Wait, that could sound so weird out of context.
I hate families. I hate them.
Yeah, I hate families.
I go up to them in the street and I like spit on them. It's just I'm joking.
Vile. But I don't like the domestic side of it very much. Apart from Donna's family, they're the only ones. Jackie to a very certain extent in the points that I love to be annoyed by it, I think. But Donna's family are the only ones that I would actually happily watch. So if they are going to bring back anyone, it would be that.
Yeah.
And of course, I can't even decide whether I like Donna or Wilf more, to be honest.
I can't pick. It's almost like, picking between like, who's your favourite parent at that point. It's just sort of like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just, they're both so great, but I think that's going to conclude the 60th stuff. I'll probably do a little thing afterwards. But thank you all for watching. God knows how I'm going to edit all this together into something mildly coherent. But thank you all for watching. Do you want me to subscribe to you, or I don't know what you'll do with your YouTube stuff right now? So
it's coming back. It's just going to be a bit later.
I'll link it anyway. But I'll just subscribe to Geek Rambles as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.